Faded neon sign outside the worn-out venue flickered weakly in the cool Texas evening. Inside, George Strait took center stage, spotlight casting an ethereal glow around him. The crowd was small, a mix of die-hard fans and curious drifters, but their applause felt distant, like an echo from a time long past. With each strum of his guitar, he could feel the weight of expectations pressing down on him. Instead of being filled with joy, he felt a profound emptiness, a disconnect that shadowed his every note. Standing at the back, Jake Morgan leaned heavily against the wall, his rough exterior hiding a soul consumed by loss. The music enveloped him, but while the melody whispered of past joys, his heart echoed darkness, memories of friendship and laughter overshadowed by the betrayals of war and despair. As he watched George perform, something stirred within him, a longing for connection he thought had faded away. In that moment, their paths briefly crossed, and George caught a glimpse of Jake's struggle in his distant gaze. For the first time in years, the singer felt the urge to reach out to bridge the gap between them. But as their eyes locked, fear rooted him to the spot. Could he really help someone so deeply lost? What could he offer that would make a difference? Just then, the unexpected happened. Jake stumbled and collapsed on the sidewalk outside. Panic surged through George. He had a choice to make: step forward or retreat into the safety of his own worries. An instinct to help flared within him, yet self-doubt held him back. He watched as the world around them moved on, unaware of the fragile lives intersecting before them. George walked off the stage, applause ringing hollow in his ears. He felt like a relic of his former self, an artist haunted by the ghosts of his past. Climbing into the bus parked nearby, he found solace in isolation, but was met with a growing emptiness. The questions flooded his mind. What is the purpose of a song if my heart isn't in it? Why does success feel so lonely? As he sat in the dimly lit bus, the silence pressed in on him, heavy with regret. Lost in his thoughts, George longed for anything that could fill the void. A connection, a reason to believe again. Perhaps, he mused, there was still a flicker of redemption waiting for him, hidden in the echoes of another's heart. Outside, the stars overhead twinkled, indifferent to the turmoil within him. In that stillness, George began to understand that he might not be as alone as he thought. All it took was a moment of kindness to light the way forward. With that small realization, the weight of loneliness began to shift, and the journey toward renewal beckoned just beyond the horizon. The tour bus rumbled along the desolate Texas highway, each bump in the road punctuating George Strait's solitude. Inside, he flipped through an old photo album, tracing fingers over the familiar faces frozen in time. His wife, Norma, with laughter shining in her eyes, their daughter Angela, blissfully unaware of the burdens that would mark her father's life. With each turn of the page, he felt the weight of nostalgia balance precariously against regret. Each snapshot a reminder of joyful moments sacrificed to the glimmer of stardom. "Did I trade everything for this?" George whispered to himself, his heart aching for the days when family embraced him like a warm blanket on a cold night. The allure of fame rang hollow against the backdrop of laughter that now felt unreachable, lost behind stage lights and roaring crowds. Across town at a nearby diner, Jake Morgan sat on a weathered couch, his hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. Years had passed since he'd felt the simple pleasure of connection. Here, among the clatter of dishes and the murmur of patrons, he found a bittersweet comfort. The melody of a bass guitar drifted in from the venue, but it mirrored more than just music. It sparked memories of laughter from a time long buried beneath the weight of war and isolation. When Jake had enlisted, he was vibrant, with dreams lighting up his eyes. As he reminisced about comrades gathered around fires, sharing stories, a pang of loss shot through him. Those days felt ancient, as if they belonged to someone else. Now, standing at the crossroads of his life, he felt adrift in a sea of faces, too familiar yet undeniably separate. The diner's door swung open, allowing a rush of golden light to spill into the dim interior, pulling Jake's gaze with it. A figure emerged, instantly recognizable even from a distance. George stepped in, his hat tipped low, casting a shadow over his eyes. The warmth of familiarity crackled in the air between them, two lost souls colliding under the weight of unvoiced struggles. "George Strait," Sam, the diner owner, called, breaking the ice as he poured a cup of coffee for George. "What brings you here?" "Just looking for a good cup of coffee, Sam," George replied, a half-smile breaking through the heaviness that had taken residence in his heart. Jake watched from his seat, unsure whether to remain hidden behind the safety of his coffee. Yet their eyes met, two distant stars finding each other in a vast, dark sky. Something shifted within George, the recognition palpable. "Jake," he said, an invitation wrapped in curiosity as he gestured toward the empty seat across from him. Reluctantly, Jake stood, adjusting his worn jacket as he crossed over. The weight of coming face to face with a man he admired mingled with the anxiety of his own predicament. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice quieter than intended. "Not at all," George replied, his smile genuine. "I saw you out there last night." "You good?" Jake hesitated, letting the moment linger. "Depends on what you mean by good. Been better, that's for sure." George nodded, a sense of camaraderie sparking between them. "Life's thrown some curveballs at me too. Seems we've both missed the bus somewhere along the way." They exchanged stories, each note striking deeper chords within their hearts. Jake shared fragments of his life before the battlegrounds had scarred him. "I used to believe in something," he admitted, echoing the anguish hidden behind his tough exterior. "Me too," George said, reminiscing about simpler days filled with dreams. "I traded family moments for a shot at stardom. Now I look back and wonder what I was thinking." As they swapped tales, George felt a sense of healing begin to blossom, as if the universe had aligned their paths for a reason. Perhaps he could help lift this weight from Jake's shoulders, just as each of them craved a connection that had seemingly slipped through their fingers. The muted chatter of the diner surrounded them, each laughter echoing stories of resilience. George's heart clenched with empathy. Here, over cups of coffee, they might begin to unravel the threads that bound them to their pasts, the tests of loyalty, the weight of regret, and the glimmers of hope that flickered at the edges of tomorrow. "I guess we can't rewrite our stories," Jake said, thoughtfully stirring his coffee, "but maybe we can work on the next chapter." "That's the spirit," George replied, his resolve strengthening. They both yearned for something deeper, a friendship that might serve as a lifeline to navigate the swirling currents of their lives. As Jake looked at George, he recognized that this was more than just casual conversation. It was an awakening, a reminder that even in darkness, there was light. Perhaps they could find a way to share that light together, transforming pain into purpose, shadows into songs. For the first time in a long while, the ghosts that had haunted them both began to fade. The diner buzzed around them, a refuge filled with laughter and warmth, each note in their dialogue blending seamlessly, a country song slowly coming to life. As they spoke, their burdens started to lift, tiny pieces of weight falling away, and while the road ahead remained uncertain, the journey toward healing and connection beckoned them onward. With hope ignited anew, both men felt their pasts forging a bond that could not be broken. Maybe the journey toward renewal awaited just beyond the horizon, and together they could embrace whatever lay ahead. The sun was just a whisper on the horizon when George and Jake stepped out of the diner, its warmth embracing them like an old friend. The spark ignited between them during those shared cups of coffee lingered in the air, propelling them toward an uncharted journey. With a simple glance towards his tour bus, George made a decision that surprised even him. He wanted to show Jake a world beyond their small town, a world filled with music and fellowship. "Ever been on a real road trip?" George asked, his excitement palpable. Jake shook his head, uncertainty clouding his eyes. "Can't say that I have. Not like you." "Then let's change that," George said, a grin spreading across his face. "Let's hit the open road and see where it takes us." With that, they tossed their bags into the bus, a thrilling sense of adventure rising within them. Climbing aboard, Jake felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him. The scent of leather, the sound of music humming softly, mingled with the unspoken promise of what lay ahead. The bus was more than a vehicle. It was a moving sanctuary filled with echoes of George's past, each note holding memories and whispers of dreams. As they rolled down the highway, the golden light of morning stretched across the landscape, painting their path in vivid hues. George shared stories of past tours, hilarious mishaps, and unforgettable moments that turned strangers into lifelong friends. Jake listened intently, laughing along, yet something deeper flickered in his heart. "What about you?" George asked, stealing a sidelong glance. "What do you want to see or do? What's out there for you?" Jake hesitated, the vulnerability creeping in. "I used to dream of driving across the country with friends, singing along to every song on the radio." He sighed, his smile dimming momentarily. But those dreams feel so far away. It's hard to picture that life again. Why not picture it now? George said, his voice steady and encouraging. We can start here, just you and me on the road. No expectations, just living. With that, they turned up the volume of the radio, a familiar tune pouring from the speakers, a melody infused with nostalgia. As they sang along, voices blending effortlessly, the barriers of their past began to crumble. The bus became a cocoon, wrapping them in warmth and laughter, every note strumming the strings of their hearts. They made spontaneous stops along the way, small diners, gas stations, and hidden gems that seemed to shimmer like treasures beneath the Texas sun. In those moments of wandering, George watched as Jake transformed before his eyes. The tentative man who had first entered the diner began to emerge, sharing stories of his childhood, the loved ones who had shaped him, and the pain he had carried for so long. Around these parts we used to have gatherings under the stars, Jake said as they sat outside a small roadside cafe, looking up at the vast evening sky. Music, laughter. It was everything back then. George nodded, feeling the warmth of friendship settle in between them. You know, it's not too late to chase those feelings again. Music has a way of healing, of bringing us back home. As night fell, a canopy of stars unveiled itself, twinkling like the dreams they had almost forgotten. The duo pulled out George's guitar, the wood familiar and worn beneath his fingers. He played soft melodies under the starlit sky, the notes drifting through the crisp air. Jake listened, allowing himself to feel each sentiment woven into the music, a reminder of the beauty still present in life. Your music, Jake began, his voice barely breaking the serene silence. It's like you share pieces of your soul with the world. I've always admired that. George paused, staring up into the stars, lost in thought. Music isn't just for the stage. It's a conversation, a way to express what we can't say in words. I've realized that's the purpose I've been looking for. With the night deepening around them, they shared more than just songs. They shared their scars, fears, and dreams. Jake felt a fire igniting inside him, fueled by George's unyielding spirit and the healing power of their connection. In the glow of the moment, both men learned that the road trip was not just a physical journey, but a transformative pilgrimage toward rediscovering themselves and each other. The distance they traveled was not measured in miles, but in trust and understanding forged between two strangers bound by shared pain. As sleep beckoned, they settled into the bus, two souls entwined in hope who had begun to navigate a path towards renewal. They closed their eyes with the knowledge that whatever awaited beyond the horizon would be faced together, each note of their journey echoing like a familiar refrain beneath the vast, endless sky. Dawn cracked open the sky, hues of pink and orange spilling over the landscape like spilled paint. Birds sang in harmonious celebration of a new day as George and Jake stirred awake inside the bus. The soft hum of the engine mingled with the fragrant scent of coffee brewing nearby, inviting them into another day of exploration. George blinked against the sunlight filtering in, suddenly filled with purpose. The weight of yesterday's burdens began to feel lighter, a sense of hope unfurling within him. Out on the road, everything felt different. The world opened up with possibilities they had only dared to imagine. "Rise and shine," George called cheerfully, pulling open the bus door and stepping out into the crisp morning air. Jake followed, rubbing sleep from his eyes as he embraced the dawn. Outwardly, the landscape glimmered, each field rich with dew, alive with color and potential. Jake inhaled deeply, allowing the fresh air to fill his lungs, pushing away the grief that had long suffocated him. He'd forgotten how invigorating it felt to simply be alive, often taking it for granted during his struggles. "What's on the agenda today?" Jake asked, a spark of curiosity igniting within him. "Let's visit a local music festival," George suggested, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "It's a chance to see how music brings people together. It's full of heart and soul." The mere mention of the festival quickened Jake's pulse. It was a reflection of everything he missed and yearned for: community, laughter, and joy woven seamlessly through music. "Sounds like a plan," he replied, a smile breaking through the remnants of his earlier hesitance. They hopped on the bus and hit the road again, the rhythmic sound of tires rolling over asphalt setting a steady beat. As they drove, Jake watched the world outside whirl by, each passing scene drawing him deeper into the tapestry of life all around him. Arriving at the festival, They were greeted by colorful banners fluttering in the breeze, the air thick with excitement. Couples twirled, children danced, and laughter echoed as musicians tuned their instruments. George's heart swelled at the sight. It was a living testament to the healing power of music. "Let's go mingle," George suggested. They moved through the crowd, immersing themselves in the sounds and sights, all the while soaking up the energy that felt palpable in the air. "Wow, this is something else," Jake marveled, catching sight of people gathered around a group of musicians playing a lively bluegrass tune. The joy radiating from the crowd sparked a fire in him. A long-buried part of him that craved connection was reawakening. "If I only had this kind of energy back home." George placed a reassuring hand on Jake's shoulder. "You do, you just have to find it again. Remember what you said about childhood dreams. Let's not just remember them, let's embody them." As if on cue, a nearby performer beckoned them to join. "Come on up, we need some backup dancers." With barely a moment for hesitation, George took Jake's hand, pulling him toward the stage. In that instant, spontaneity kicked in, lifting Jake's spirit higher than he'd felt in years. The music flowed through him, and as they danced, laughter replaced self-doubt. He felt lighter, as if the weight of his past was peeling away, thread by thread. "See, that's the spirit," George cheered, spinning around, his infectious energy igniting the audience around them. The band transitioned from one song to another, each rhythm propelling Jake forward until he was fully immersed in the moment. For the first time, he felt free, untethered from worry, sorrow, and the shackles that had previously confined him. After their impromptu performance, the crowd erupted in applause, the warmth of acceptance wrapping around Jake like a much-needed embrace. He stood, breathing in the moment, a grin stretched across his face. George caught Jake's eye, and in that gaze, they shared an understanding, a vow to keep moving forward together. "You feel that?" George asked, grinning widely. "That's life. Let it guide you." Later, they found a cozy spot to rest, sitting on the grass as artists filled the air with melodies of love, loss, and everything in between. They were both lost in thought, savoring the moments unfolding before them, the music echoing through their hearts. Jake pondered quietly. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness, of myself, for the past. This feels like a step toward that." George tilted his head, considering his friend's words. "Forgiveness is powerful. It frees us from the chains that bind our hearts. Letting go opens a door to what's possible." As the sun slipped lower in the sky, painting the horizon in fiery hues, George's voice softened, filled with sincerity. "What happened before doesn't define you. It's what you choose to become that matters." Jake nodded, a rising warmth cascading through him. In this moment among friends and music, he began to recognize the truth inherent in George's words. It was the first step toward rebuilding himself, and it felt like a rebirth. After the festival, they lingered, content to let the night wash over them. George pulled out his guitar, and as he strummed softly under the stars, he sang a hauntingly beautiful ballad, a melody that resonated with their journey. Each note carried the weight of their struggles and the promise of what could be, an anthem of renewed hope. As Jake listened, the intertwining of their stories sang loudly. He felt compassion swell within him, a blend of healing and gratitude toward the man sitting next to him. Their laughter dripped into the night air, each moment becoming a tether connecting them, further anchoring their friendship. In that serene embrace of the cosmos, they discovered that they were not alone. They had each other. With their hearts open, they were ready to forge ahead, bearing the songs of their past, while looking forward to a future that shimmered with possibility. They would not just carry their burdens, they would transform them, creating a new harmony born from resilience, vulnerability, and shared dreams. In the gentle embrace of that starlit night, renewed aspirations danced on the edges of their hearts, promising a brighter path together. The dawn after the festival arrived, shrouded in a thick morning mist that hung over the landscape like a veil of uncertainty. Inside the tour bus, the air was charged with a blend of hope and trepidation. George poured 2 steaming mugs of coffee, the rich aroma filling the cramped space. It grounded them, drawing them momentarily away from their worries. "Hey," George said, breaking the silence, "I think we should talk about what's next." Jake looked up, his brow furrowing slightly. "Yeah, I guess we need to. Everything feels good now, but what if I mess up again?" "Failure is part of life," George replied. his voice steady, an anchor in the storm. "It doesn't define who we are. It's how we rise after falling that matters." Jake ran a hand through his hair, uncertainty swirling in his chest. "I've packed so much pain away. I don't know if I can keep moving forward without it haunting me." "Let's face those fears together," George encouraged, leaning closer. "I'm not going anywhere. You've already taken so many steps to find yourself. Just look at what we've accomplished so far." A flicker of determination ignited in Jake's belly. "You're right," he said, a glimmer of hope breaking through. "Today is a new opportunity. I just need to keep going." As the day unfolded, they embarked on a journey back to Jake's hometown, a place steeped in both fond and painful memories. The familiar landscape began to loom ahead, and Jake's heart raced with anticipation and fear. "I can't believe we're doing this," he murmured, anxiety creeping in. "We can just drive through if that's what you want," George said gently, sensing Jake's discomfort. "No, I need to face this," Jake replied, steadying his breath as they entered the streets of his past. He felt a cocktail of emotions stirring within him, nostalgia, sadness, and a touch of anger at the things he had endured. As they passed the familiar park where he had spent countless hours as a child, a pang of bittersweet longing hit him. "That's where I learned to play my first song," Jake said, a weak smile cracking his expression. "It felt like it was going to save me, but it didn't." "Let's make new memories there," George suggested, his voice laced with encouragement. "Let's revive some of that hope." Reluctantly, Jake stepped out of the bus. The park was tranquil, the swings creaking softly in the breeze. Each detail felt like a thread tying him to his former self, yet he sensed an opportunity for growth. "It's strange being back," he admitted, staring into the distance. George pulled out his guitar, the sun shining brightly now as if urging them forward. "Let's play something," he proposed, strumming a simple, familiar tune. Jake hesitated. The thought of embodying that old self filled him with doubt. But George caught his eye, and something in his friend's encouraging gaze sparked an urge deep within him. Slowly, as George played, Jake found his voice. He joined in tentatively at first, but soon his spirit soared. The song resonated with everything they had shared, the good and the painful. As they played, laughter crept back into Jake's heart, woven through each chord. For the first time in ages, the weight he had carried seemed to lighten. Tears pooled in his eyes, overflowing as he felt both release and connection, a reclaiming of that lost part of his youth. "That felt incredible," Jake said, breathless as they finished. "I had forgotten how freeing that is." "It's a step," George replied, a wide smile on his face. "Look how far you've come already." In the warm glow of the afternoon, Jake felt rebirth coursing through him. Just as he began to breathe in this new possibility, shadows from his past emerged unexpectedly. Familiar faces approached him, old friends he hadn't seen in years, each filled with their own memories of the man he used to be. "Jake, is that really you?" Kyle, a friend from their youth, approached with a hesitant smile. Jake's heart quickened. "Yeah, it's me," he said, the familiar rush of insecurity washing over him. "I'm trying to get better." Kyle's expression morphed between disbelief and concern. "I didn't think I'd see you here again. How are you really doing?" The question hung in the air, heavy and laden with expectation. Honestly, Jake took a breath, feeling the weight of his past shifting. "I'm working on forgiving myself, letting go of the things I can't change. It's a process." Jake felt a jolt of warmth at Kyle's words. Perhaps this path to reconnecting wasn't entirely closed. "Thanks. That means a lot," he replied, relief flooding through him. As they lingered, Jake watched the sunlight breaking through the clouds above him, painting the ground with warmth. The familiar faces that had once evoked dread now felt like an opportunity for new beginnings. He realized that this moment wasn't just about confronting his past, it was about reshaping his narrative into something hopeful. Endings blended into beginnings as laughter filled the park once more, this time carrying the weight of friendship and redemption. Jake understood that confronting his fears and breathing through the discomfort was transformative. He began to see that every moment, painful or beautiful, drew him closer to the man he intended to be. With George beside him and the day trailing brightly ahead, Jake felt a renewed purpose ignite within him. The path wasn't clear or easy, but it was filled with promise. Standing there, rooted in a place of healing, he found the strength to keep moving forward, not just for himself but for the hope of a shared future, filled with music, friendship, and the courage to face whatever awaited on the horizon. The weeks following their return from the park brought a sense of revitalization to Jake's life. Together on the road with George, each performance radiated with newfound energy and purpose. The laughter shared and the songs sung became a joyful backdrop to a life that felt rich with promise, but beneath it lay a creeping discomfort. As they recorded their music in various studios, Jake admired George's ability to weave tales of life, love, and redemption through simple yet powerful lyrics. Yet within Jake, lingering shadows of doubt and fear tugged persistently at the edges of his optimism. He felt the bittersweet weight of the past tugging him back, whispering reminders of his failures. One evening, after a particularly electric concert filled with applause, Jake stepped outside into the quiet of the Texas night. The stars peppered the sky like distant beacons as he took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill his lungs. But instead of peace, uncertainty gripped him. George followed, sensing his friend's struggle. "What's on your mind, Jake?" George asked, taking a seat next to him on the steps of the performance venue. "I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads," Jake admitted, eyes fixed on the ground. "I've made strides, but what if I stumble again? I can't keep letting my past define me." George leaned closer, his voice steady and comforting. "You've already shown so much courage by facing your fears. Every step forward is a victory, even if it doesn't feel like it." "I know," Jake said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "But this journey isn't just about me. I have so many people watching, waiting for me to succeed or fail. Let them see you, Jake. All of you, the struggles and the growth. They need to understand the honesty behind your journey." George paused, letting his words land. "But the real question is, are you ready to confront your past?" The question hung in the air, and Jake felt the tightening in his chest. "I guess I have to be, huh? It's time." The next day, they received news of a radio show appearance in a town Jake recognized all too well. It was where he had faced many of his struggles. Anxiety and dread spiraled within him. "Are you okay about this?" George asked as they arrived at the radio station, noticing Jake's rigid posture. "I'm not sure," Jake admitted, the past brewing in his mind. "But I have to face it. Today could be a turning point." Inside the studio, the buzz of excitement surrounded them as the DJ welcomed them. Jake felt his heart race as they settled in front of the microphones, the weight of expectation pressing down. The conversation flowed easily at first, covering light topics about their shared experiences. But before long, the DJ's tone shifted. "Jake, can you share a bit about your past and the struggles you've faced?" The simple question sent a wave of anxiety coursing through him. Memories emerged unbidden, days of lost opportunities and regret. He glanced at George, who nodded encouragingly. Jake took a breath, summoning his inner strength. "I used to think my failures were the entirety of my story," he confessed, voice quavering slightly. "I beat myself up for the choices I made. I was ashamed. But now I realize those experiences do not define me. They are parts of my journey, not the whole picture." The room quieted and Jake pressed on, emboldened by George's presence. "It's been hard to accept, but I'm learning to forgive myself. Every day is a chance to do better, to be better." The host leaned in, intrigued. "That's profound, Jake. How do you keep moving forward?" Jake met the host's gaze, feeling the weight of the moment. "I look to the music and the people who believe in me. I want to inspire others who are struggling, to show them it's possible to rise again." Applause erupted momentarily from the studio crew, and Jake felt warmth wash over him. Despite his fears, he was stepping into the light, inviting others to join him on this journey. As they wrapped up the interview and stepped back outside, the sunlight felt more vibrant than ever. Jake turned to George, a grin spreading across his face. "I didn't think I could do that." "You did it beautifully," George replied, pride in his voice. "You took a leap and spoke your truth. That's powerful." Days passed, and that sense of lightness propelled Jake and George forward, drawing them closer. But as the annual music festival in their hometown approached, Jake's anxieties began to simmer again. Would they accept him? Would they understand his journey? "Let them see the real you," George advised again, as they prepared backstage. As the moment drew closer, Jake's heart raced. He stood behind the curtain, feeling the roar of the crowd reverberate in his chest. "What if they see me for who I used to be?" he said anxiously. "Then show them who you've become," George replied firmly. "You've fought for every note you've sung. It's time to own your story." The lights dimmed, and his pulse raced as he stood before the familiar faces in the crowd. He stepped onto the stage, the spotlight illuminating his path. As the music began, Jake recognized the familiar and supportive faces of friends and family, their anticipation palpable. He sang not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever faced hardship. Each note resonated with his journey, every lyric a testament to his rebirth. The crowd began to sway, the energy lifting them all collectively. Amid the beautiful chaos, Jake spotted Kyle in the front row, tears glistening in his eyes. Laughter rippled through the audience, and applause enveloped him like a warm embrace. In that moment, he felt a profound sense of connection, a bond forged in shared experiences. Pain turned to healing. As the final chords faded into a poignant silence, Jake took a moment to breathe, smiling as the crowd erupted into cheers. He turned to George, whose pride radiated like a beacon. The journey had not been easy, but together they had transcended the past. They were not only rewriting their own stories, they were creating harmonies of hope for others as well. With every note sung and every heart connected, Jake knew he had stepped fully into the light. The shadows of yesterday were just echoes, giving him the courage to embrace tomorrow, a tomorrow filled with infinite possibilities, music, and the promise of new beginnings. The exhilarating energy after the festival clung to Jake like a second skin. Backstage with George, he was still riding the high from their performance, relief mixed with joy, as the cheers of their audience echoed in his mind. "I can't believe I actually did that," Jake admitted, grinning. George chuckled, his eyes sparkling. "You did more than just perform. You opened your heart on that stage." Jake felt a swell of gratitude. "Thank you for everything. I wouldn't be here without your support." "Just remember, it's your journey to own," George reminded him. "Keep sharing your story. It's a gift." In the days that followed, Jake began to envision something bigger. Inspired by their connection with the audience, he decided to hold a workshop where people could share their stories through music. "Let's take this beyond the stage," he proposed as they packed up their gear. "I want to give people a space to express themselves." "Great idea," George replied. "Music can heal, and giving others the chance to tell their stories will only amplify that." The planning began, and on the day of the workshop, Jake stood nervously at the front of the packed room. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation and a touch of anxiety. "Thank you all for being here," Jake began, voice steadying. "Today is about finding our voices and healing together. Your stories are important." As he guided the attendees through songwriting exercises, Jake watched as they transformed their fears into expressions of hope. One man spoke of his struggles with loss, his words trembling yet filled with courage. "I thought I was alone in this," he admitted, "but hearing your story made me feel like I can share mine." Jake nodded, feeling the tears prick at his own eyes. "You're not alone. We're all in this together." By the end of the workshop, each participant had crafted raw, beautiful songs. When they performed together, the room resonated with emotions that tiptoed between laughter and tears. Jake felt a powerful sense of unity, a shared journey toward healing. Afterward, backstage, George joined Jake, his expression one of pride. "You created something incredible today." "I didn't do it alone," Jake replied. "We all shared our stories. That's what made it special." As the sun set, Jake felt a new chapter unfurling before him. He was no longer merely a survivor. He was a facilitator of change, bringing people together through music and shared experiences. "Soon we have that bigger venue coming up," George reminded him. "You'll have the chance to reach even more people." Thoughts of leaving the intimacy of small gatherings for a large crowd stirred unease in Jake. "What if we can't connect with them?" he asked. "What if they see me for who I used to be?" "Show them who you've become," George said firmly. "You have a story that will resonate. Share it as you always have." On the night of the performance, Jake stood before the expansive audience, his heart racing. "This is for everyone who's ever felt lost," he began, finding steady ground within the sea of faces. "We all have stories that shape us. Let's share them." As he sang, the crowd became a living entity, swaying with every note. Laughter and tears danced through the air, and Jake felt the warmth of connection seep into his bones. With each chord, he understood their shared energy was an affirmation of resilience, a celebration of life that echoed in their hearts. After the final song, thunderous applause filled the space, and he felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. Stepping off stage, Jake turned to George, his smile radiant. "We did it. This connection was real." "Absolutely," George replied, his pride evident. You've created something beautiful. Together, they had woven a network of hope through music, turning their struggles into something life-affirming. As they embraced the bright future ahead, Jake knew he was not just an artist. He was a storyteller paving the way for healing, connection, and endless possibilities.